We've got a federal judge in California up against the United States Supreme Court. Federal Judge Frimpong said in Los Angeles that Donald Trump could not use racial profiling, what a person looks like, what a person sounds like, where a person hangs out, as a grounds to detain them, deport them, remove them, which is exactly what they're doing in places like California. Jumping out of the back of U-Haul trucks, dressed in black with masks to take down other human beings in parking lots because of their hanging out there and speaking Spanish. Judge Frimpong said, no, there's already been violations of her order. And now the Trump administration has taken an emergency application to the United States Supreme Court. What's going to happen there? We brief you and debrief you on everything that's going to happen to the United States Supreme Court on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, on a show that Dina Doll and I named Unprecedented. And here's a clip. Why don't we move the audience on then to this rehearing? I'll say what the case is about, then I'll turn it over to you on the rehearing side. So Judge Frimpong, who's in the Central District of California in the LA area, drafted an order that was very narrow but important that said that at least in her district, not nationwide, the ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, couldn't use racial profiling, if you will, ethnic profiling, color of somebody's skin, their language, their last name, without more to detain or civilly arrest or criminally arrest related to the immigration and removal actions by Donald Trump's people, because they were just going to Home Depot and they overheard Spanish. We just saw, we'll put it up here as a split screen or as an asset. We just saw a rented U-Haul being used to go into a Home Depot parking lot in California, I think it was. Maybe it was Texas. And and so the people that are waiting there for day labor jobs, some of whom may have conflicted immigration status, said, well, there's a U-Haul pulling into a Home Depot. It didn't set off any alarms. Now if they see it, they will, because the door's open, and out came 20 ICE in black, head to toe in masks, and went after all these people in a very inhumane way. So she says can't do that if the only basis is, in fact, that looked like a violation. It was in California. That looked like a violation of Judge Frimpong's injunction, and she'll have to get to the bottom of that. But in the meantime, the Trump administration didn't like the ruling, and so what did they do next? Yeah,
so they're asking the Supreme Court. I read it thinking, okay, is there going to be any legal, nuance, let's say, that we haven't talked about? And there's not. They really are saying that they want to be able to use somebody's race or ethnicity, whether or not they're speaking Spanish or speaking English with an accent, whether or not they are at a particular location, such as, places where maybe an undocumented person could work, any Home Depot or anything like that, and the type of work that they do. They want those four factors to be enough to allow reasonable suspicion basis to detain somebody. And just to kind of break this down really quickly, because you need reasonable suspicion to detain somebody briefly. You need probable cause to arrest somebody. So the order really is even dealing with the lesser reasonable suspicion and saying it's still not enough to have just those four factors. And it's racial profiling. I mean, the Supreme Court has spoken about racial profiling before. We had back in 2012, the Show Me Your Papers, right, in Arizona law that state law tried to do that was struck down by the Supreme Court. We have the sheriff there, our PO, who was struck down for racial profiling, and the Supreme Court declined to bail him out, let's say. So the law is very clear about that racial profiling is not enough to form reasonable suspicion for law enforcement to detain you. It's not enough because we have something called the Fourth Amendment. We have a law against unreasonable searches and seizures. You could say, why can't the law enforcement just go into everybody's homes, right? They're bound to find something in somebody's homes. But we have laws in this country that don't allow the police to just come into your home anytime they want. They can't come into your car anytime they want. They can't detain you anytime you want. And the reason why not is the Fourth Amendment. And it applies here. It applies to somebody even who's undocumented. It's very clear law. And the fact that the Trump is not even trying to make any kind of a nuanced argument. They're just hoping that this super conservative MAGA, whatever you want to call the Supreme Court, who's just giving Trump wins like candy, is going to give him yet another win. So this is definitely something to keep an eye out, because there's absolutely no reason for them to overturn the lower court orders. Pause. Interestingly enough, and this has to do with a little bit with Florida too. The argument, the one maybe let's say nuanced argument, or the new argument they make, is that the judge shouldn't have been allowed to do an order that affected everybody in the central district, right? That's where the judge oversees the central district, saying that this new ban on nationwide injunctions in the CASA decision also applies here. This is too broad. The plaintiffs there are also asking for a class action. But so that, I think this is going to be the new strategy. They did this also in Florida, is not only trying to attack maybe, let's say, the merits, but trying to get the Supreme Court to maybe expand even that CASA decision to limit even more what an individual judge can do. But yeah, this is where we're at. It's a really disturbing place that we have, a presidential administration literally asking the Supreme Court to allow it to racially profile people and their detainment of people on this soil. But that's where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I'm hoping that'll fail. I know what the three liberal or moderate justices are going to say, but we'll have to see if there's 5 votes.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the things that at one time stopped Donald Trump, the numbers have just changed in the United States Supreme Court. I'll give but one example. Trump is back to having his Commerce Secretary, which is Howard Lutnick, try to stick have the census that's planned for after he's done in office, the next census, the 2030 census, include a question about whether you're a citizen or not, and only count citizens or those that are like Americans or documented or whatever he wants to do. That's not what the Constitution says. It's everybody who is occupying resident, but they don't mean residents in the traditional sense. A state needs to be counted. Now, a lot of the undocumented go underground and don't. That's one of the problems with the count, and they don't really use statistics to fix it. They should use modeling to fix it, but they don't. So he tried his last term to have his then Commerce Secretary add that question. It went up to the United States Supreme Court. Wilbur Ross was the Commerce Secretary at the time, and 5-4, when Breyer was still on there and Ginsburg was still on there, he joined the 4 liberals because he didn't like the answers that Wilbur Ross gave as to the rationale for why he needed to add citizenship. But there were 4 votes on the other side that are still there. Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and I believe, unless Scalia was on there at the time, but there were 4 votes. Now it's a 6-3 court. So even if Roberts slid over again, he'd have to bring Amy Coney Barrett with him. And she's sort of unreliable, as we know. So if this thing comes up again about census counting and immigrants or illegals or whatever migrants, we're gonna be in for a world of hurt, because you can see the change in the court, right? Welcome back. You're on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. If you found yourself here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Without your support, this channel does not exist. It ceases to exist. It's free. No paywall. Just hit the subscribe button. Help us continue to grow this channel. And then listen to Dina Doll and me. For every week, we do a show about the United States Supreme Court. Cases that are there, the emergency docket, the regular appeals, the start of the new term, the first Monday in October, and how cases that are moving their way through the pipeline, how they will end up at the Supreme Court in our view of what will happen there. Only on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Take a moment, hit that free subscribe button, set reminders for Unprecedented. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.